Well, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Coastal communities around Lagos and all over Nigeria are considered the last frontiers of an ongoing battle against plastic pollution, which in itself has assumed disturbing dimensions on a global scale. Because of their remote locations and varying degrees of difficulty in accessing them, a lot of these communities are more or less left on their own to deal with the consequences of eroding shorelines, poisoned ecosystems, and loss of livelihoods. Well, we are being joined by environmental activist, a founder, Right on the Beach Initiative, Akintunde Disu, to look at social justice for these geographically threatened coastal communities and how securing the mangrove forest could be a good way to provide carbon assets for the development of rural areas. Good morning, Mr. Disu.
Hello, good morning. Lovely to be back.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Well, let's head straight into this because, you just said, you explained that you have been able to remove 30 tons of plastic from the oceans in the last 3 years. And then you work with the recyclers and you use this money to fund education, I believe?
Yes.
So can you explain how the Right on the Beach initiative basically goes from plastic waste to educating Nigerian children?
Well, okay, so it's all about, showing people that there's value in everything. We call it the paradox of value, where, like clean water, it costs very little, and a diamond that has no use is very expensive. So what we try and do is similarly, 90% of the resources of this nation are in the rural areas, and yet 90% of our population is in the urban areas. So we try and look at things that look as if they're not worth anything and try and understand what the value is in these things and bring them out. So what we did was take the plastic on the beach, which was not worth anything, bring university students onto the beach to give us the data that we required to be able to assess what the job was. Then we went and met the communities and explained to them what it is we were trying to do. And then working with all of us working together, we were able to come up with a solution, a very social solution, where we were able to equip children to go to school in the communities, and they in return would bring 22 bottles every day. So, and then we would now move, when this thing became a ton, because it was impossible for you to actually make money from removing the plastic itself. But we would now move this plastic, and as we moved the plastic, we were able to show people where the value lies in the whole system. And then the other people were able to come on board and emulate this and use this, the work we've done to continue it. So now there's no more PET bottles on the beach. All the legacy plastic has been cleared of PET bottles, has been cleared from the beach, and we're now tackling the soft plastic issue.
All right, then. So let's talk about, the challenges, because when we think about the remote and isolated, let's say, nature of many coastal communities, what unique obstacles would you say you face in, securing support and resources to combat plastic pollution and, I would say, environmental degradation?
Well, for one thing, we were very lucky we started when we did, because we won't be able to do it today. The cost of fuel has just made it impossible. We did our last one, I think, in March this year, and it cost us almost ₦1 million. And you only earn about 108,000 naira from the plastic itself. So we wouldn't have been able to do it again, but luckily, all the legacy plastic has gone, and we've developed a system. They've developed a system that works for them now. But the unique challenge with dealing with places like that really is that there's just not enough manpower, skilled manpower, to help you do these things. And one of the things we find is you really have to speak to the youth in the universities, and who have the energy and the power, to do all these things and work with them.
Fantastic. So you said all the legacy plastic is gone, but we still have the PET.
We still have the soft plastic.
The soft plastic.
Yeah.
Have you seen any improvement with the Lagos state, announcing that plastics are being phased out? And do you think that's a good policy?
That was such an amazing thing they did. It looked like such a little thing, and you thought it won't work. But the styrofoam, the amount of styrofoam, which was one of the biggest problems on the beach, is almost, the styrofoam has really, really reduced. It really worked. It really worked. Kudos to Lagos State government for that.
Okay. Oh, so I thought you were going to say something else.
Go ahead.
All right then. So how do you propose integrating, would I say, social justice into environmental action? Because I mean, you are talking about doing it from an angle of with the residency and working with these students, but it is something that should be. Let's say there should be more people doing it. So is there, like we look at like expansion, are there any plans to be able to do that, to be able to cover, more beaches and like more coastal communities?
Yes, thank you for that, because that's exactly what we're working on.
Yeah.
In this symposium, we actually have the Ministry of Environment present, and then we have two of the kings from the area who are coming for the symposium, as well as experts in carbon markets, in so many other things that we're bringing together. So we bring all these people together so that we can show how, if we all work together, we can create this kind of impact that's needed. Lagos State just released the voluntary carbon emissions table that you're going to have to say how much businesses are going to have to say how much carbon they emit, and soon they're going to tax you on that carbon, on the carbon that you emitted. But yet, you're asking us, you're telling us that this is what we emit, but what is it that we have already? Yeah. Like those mangroves are capable of sequestering, the mangroves of the Western Peninsula are capable of sequestering 22 million tons of carbon, and that is worth about $200 million over a 25-year span. It could be worth as much as that to the communities if they're able to harness that, and that's where social justice comes in. How can we use the knowledge we have to create long value? Because we like to judge our things, the value of it as it is today. It's not very valuable today. But if we take it and we build roads and we build schools and we build hospitals and we give them power and sewage and clean water and all these things, then in 20 years, that land, that area would be very, very valuable. And that's what we have to look at. And that's one of the things, the 2 cohorts ago, that's what the students from the universities came up. They came up with a plan for the area to create $1 billion economy, working with the people to preserve the mangroves and clean the beach, because you can't have it all starts with cleaning the beach. Nobody's going to come to a filthy beach.
Nobody.
So you start with that, and then you get the confidence of the people, and then you go from there. These things take a long time.
Well done.
Fantastic. Now, you've spoken about the importance of, preserving the mangrove forest, especially as a carbon sink, especially with global warming and climate change. Like we saw the floods Nigeria faced earlier this year. In terms of educating the people about, because I like this thing you're talking about, the paradox of value, right? And how much value that these forests have is that it's not just valuable for us, but for the whole world to help reduce the temperature. So do you have like public education, things like that, particularly about like maybe climate change, global warming, and like seeing the value of it, not just for the people there, but for the larger Nigeria?
Yes, we have a free course that everybody who comes that's involved with us has to take before you start. And that, I think about over 3,000, it's endorsed by the NYSC, and over 3,000 people have gotten certified, taking that course and gotten certified. And all the work we do is really about advocacy, telling people how important it is. And the mangroves in Lagos, I mean, they're quite small, but they're the only ones that are left. And these mangroves are it's the only natural area we have in Lagos. So if they go, that's it, we're done. And they protect the whole of the western area of Lagos, Apapa, all of that and everything. If that area should ever be breached, it's a big problem. And then they regulate the flow of water into the lagoon as well.
I was about to ask about flooding.
Yeah, which is flooding, so they serve a very important purpose. But more than that, if we can create an example here, the mangroves of the Niger Delta are the 3rd largest in the world. Wow. And you see, when you're trying to do all these things, because it hasn't been done before, there is no precedent. So you can't get money to help you. Nobody really understands what you're trying to do. you know, and all these things. But you just keep on going. You create the example. It will happen. And then people know, and then they can come and take your model, which is just for a very tiny place. Do you know what I mean? And then they can take it and they can scale it in the Niger Delta. You know, and then we can use that to really help. The ones in the Niger Delta, I think they're worth over $100 billion. You know, and it's recurrent. It's every year because carbon credits get retired every year. You know, and then they can use that, you know, to power that area. And since carbon credits, it's all about taking care of land. So all the damage that's been done there can be fixed through this.
Well, like honing in on that, like giving the importance of carbon credits as as environmental assets, I'll say, and how can Nigeria's mangrove forest be leveraged as the carbon assets for the development of the rural areas that you speak of, or should we look at maybe incentives that should be put in place to encourage local participation?
Yes, it has to be local participation because the locals become the custodians of the forest. They've already done it in Cotonou, so it's not as if it's new. It has been done in Cotonou, and you see when you bring in the people and you make deals with the people, you do this, you protect this, we give you this, you protect that, we give you this, and then you make it something bigger, because the mangroves are really wonderful to see. It's amazing because it's really from space you can see them because as they say you can't see the wood for the forest. When you're in it, but they've got an amazing amount of wildlife. Last year we had the Lekki Bird Club come in and they counted the most amount of birds. In 87 birds were counted in just 24 hours in Ilashe. And it beats anywhere else in Lagos in the amount of wildlife that's there. They've got hippos, they've got crocodiles, they've got all sorts that are hidden in those forests. Yeah. And it can become a world-class tourist destination, like ecotourism, like Costa Rica and things like that. And with Lagos and our diaspora, we really should be doing that to create something unique for us.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Akintunde Dusu, for joining us. I feel like we've all learned something very interesting today. The paradox of value. Why is diamond more expensive than clean water?
Than clean water.
No,
it's of no use
that
to
one
you.
is going to stick with me.